Hi, welcome to Integrate or Die. I'm Steve Hunt.
And I'm Jordan Katz.
So, this episode, we spoke with Sam Passman, who works for SAP Factors, and Sam's specialty is in talent management technology. Shared a lot of interesting things. Jordan, what were some of the things you took away from this conversation?
Well, first of all, I love talking about performance management and helping people reach their goals. And absolutely, that the performance discussion, outcome discussion should be continuous. That there's now AI and other tools that can help managers have great conversations with their employees. Because the typical approach or the historical approach is like once or twice a year we have this conversation and everybody's surprised, usually not in a great way because no one likes surprises in business. So really fascinating conversation, enlightening in many ways, and great input for everybody to focus on at work.
Yeah, I think on this one, when you get into performance and talent management, a lot of this, Sam commented on is if there's an area where the biggest issue is not knowing what to do, it's getting people to do it. It is around talent management, like setting clear goals, providing
Mm-hmm.
ongoing feedback, being transparent about how you measure people's performance so they can control their own lives and behavior. And and he also expressed on that was interesting. He talked about how we're using technology to support these things, trying to get people to do stuff they should already be doing. But he also talked about one of the biggest limitations in the talent management field is due to that like for example goal setting technology, you can have the best goal setting technology in the world, but if the company's not setting clear goals, doesn't have a clear strategy, the technology is not going to work. And so in
True.
this particular area, he said talked about how one of the sort of I don't think he used the word frustrated, but I'll use the word frustrated. One of the frustrating things is not, hey, we got technology to do awesome things if you'd only as a company do the stuff you should already doing, like having a clear strategy, rewarding people for performance, stuff like that. So let's listen to Sam. Sam, welcome to Integrate or Die. Jordan, I always start this the same way by telling you why we invited you on here. You and I have worked together for a long time, and really, what I think of you, aside from being an expert in Broadway musicals, which you are,
Nice.
yeah, really, it's hidden, one of those hidden superpowers. Is the other thing though is real expert. You've had a long background in learning, but even more so broader talent management. I think you and I, most of the work we've done together has been more on the talent management, performance management space. But you've also worked in employee experience, so you've just been in this world of kind of strategic HR technology for quite a while. So that's kind of what we wanted to get your perspective. But how would you describe your expertise? What are you an expert in?
Well, so that's actually a really good intro already. I started my career way back in the late 90s with ironically doing SAP implementations, but I immediately moved into learning management systems and then
Mhm.
specifically working in consulting for PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM with learning management system implementations. And I developed some expertise in regulated, especially life science implementations, and then really just starting to focus on learning management systems, and one in particular, which was called Plateau. And then ultimately, I did get the opportunity where Plateau finally asked me to come work for them. And so I did professional services for Plateau. And then while at Plateau, I finally realized what was my real dream is that after hearing all of these customer requirements for so many years, I really wanted to actually be responsible for designing the products and being
Mhm.
able to take all that I had learned and knowledge and make things that people like to use and want to use. And so I did get that opportunity finally to own the talent management suite for Plateau, which then got acquired by SuccessFactors, which then got acquired by SAP. And then my whole life was a big circle in terms of everything comes back to SAP. Um, but I have been, working in the talent management space and owning the product portfolio for SAP SuccessFactors for talent management for the past 3 or so years. I've also owned our integration with experience management solutions back when we were working with Qualtrics and integrating them into our solutions. And now my new, passion, of course, is AI and how AI fits into this talent management experience and is able to enable and empower people more so than ever before. So, like everyone else, it's all about the AI, and AI, and specifically my space, is fascinating. It's an exciting time.
So before we get into sort of the technologies and some of the things you think are cool, I'm curious just because you've had such an interesting experience in that, what do you think just on your take over all of the field of HR technology when you've looked at this? What are the big lessons that you've learned from both implementing and developing that you'd say this is what somebody working in this space should know?
Um, and this is true even for the strategy that success factors has actually moved into, which I'm 100% behind, is the fact that we've really moved from talent management being really an org driven push down approach to really becoming one in which the employee is center. And we have
Mm,
to build things and capabilities and functionalities and processes with the employee in mind, because it is at the end of the day all about the employee and their experience and their engagement and how they are able to accomplish the things they need to do. And not only that, but also being able to have the employees be able to focus on not necessarily the transaction, but the actual things that are going to help them improve their both performance or actually career and help them develop. But that move to being org focused to employee focused, I say, is the biggest thing. And the biggest lesson learned is that you have to get that employee feedback. You can't build
mm.
something that's based upon the requirements of HR. You have to build it on the requirements of the employee themselves.
I think that's such a great observation. I think that's interesting. I think it's also something, just because I've worked a lot in this space too, in technology, where employees, nobody wants a performance appraisal, but everyone wants like career guidance and
Mhm.
recognition
Feedback,
and feedback.
feedback, feedback,
And
feedback, feedback.
yeah, and when all we had was, paper and pencil, the best we could do was an annual performance review. But now that we have all
Yeah.
these other tools like chatbots and all this other stuff, focusing more on giving employees what they want as opposed to creating processes that didn't do what employees wanted them to do.
Yeah. And I'll add one other thing, continuous.
Yeah,
Continuous. So
sure.
it's not about setting, something, let's say from a performance perspective, goals at the beginning of the year, and then most people forget about them throughout, and you're not engaging with your manager on an ongoing basis, and then you get to this performance assessment where you're suddenly doing that evaluation. Being able to have it be continuous, a process in which you're constantly engaging, whether it's with your manager or from a project perspective, and getting that feedback at that point of time. I mean, I'm not of the opinion that, from a pay performance perspective, being able to assess people is something that I don't think ever is going to go away. But it should be something that is a formality at the end, that is based
Mhm.
upon conversations that have already been happening already throughout the year. And when you do have that evaluation at the end, it should be more of that continuous planning on what's going to happen next. All the feedback should already be given. No one should be waiting for feedback at the end of the year with the assessment. It should have been given throughout the process and the life cycle of the individual.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. For years, people have said there should be no surprises in a performance review.
Exactly. Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be talking about what has happened. It's talking about what should happen based on kind of the
that's
ongoing
right.
trajectory. That's a
Where are you going
great
That's
next?
observation. Where are you
Yeah,
going next?
yeah.
and that's a really good point, which is, and you just mentioned it a few minutes ago, which is like instead of calling it a performance review or talking about performance, if it was always framed eh, on how do you get to the next level,
Mhm,
like how do you make it to the next step in your career, I
mhm.
think everyone would feel a lot better about it.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
Yeah.
framed so poorly, like, hey, welcome to our annual performance review cycle. It's like a
Right.
cycle. Like, what am I cycling? Do I have to go get on a bike? This is the worst process branding ever. This should be like your career advancement strategy discussion. Like, get with
Yeah.
your manager and let's talk about how we're going to get to the next level. And some people aren't going to get to the next level. And yes, managers are going to have tough conversations, but like at least the branding isn't like, welcome to beverages that taste terrible. We're going to go drink some really bad beverages and it's going to really make you feel upset. Like, that's bad branding, right?
Yeah.
Well,
We're going to go take
yeah,
shots and we'll all be drunk. Like, that's the
that,
other
that,
side, right?
I think that that's true. I think the clarity and the transparency not going. On the other hand, like HR is full of like taking words and trying to make them sound good. Like I always joke about development opportunities. You should hire me. I have a wealth of developmental opportunities. It's like it's just my so.
A lot of
But I think it's
potential, no actual value yet.
I've seen too many companies that change the name without changing the process. It's like really use the technology. Well, getting into the technology, when you look at the technology in this sort of talent management space, what are one or two technologies that have been around for a long time that you're like, how come everybody isn't using this? This is like, because there's always the new, as you said, AI stuff, but also there's stuff that's been around for a long time. Is there stuff that like maybe that you built 10 years ago that you're like, I can't believe everyone's not using this. It works.
Oh, there's a couple of things there. Well, that's such a good question. I hate it when we build something and people aren't like fully utilizing it and leveraging and adopting it. So we came out with our continuous performance management offering. God, so many years ago at this point, and maybe it was 6 years ago when we had our initial version. I don't remember the exact time frame, but it does amaze me that more people are not leveraging that capability as being the way in which you can actually support those ongoing conversations with your manager. And we've come out with various enhancements to be able to, improve it, like being able to support matrix management conversations and tracking activities and achievements. But it's such a great way to really facilitate that conversation. We always talk about, not every manager is a great manager, and a lot of managers need help. And so when we have this capability that you can actually utilize to be able to support those one-on-one meeting and conversations that can help to influence the agenda of what you talk about, it surprises me that people aren't all over that and being able to use that to really structure those one-on-one meetings and help managers become better managers because they can have more focused and structured conversations about the activities and the achievements that person's working on. Another one that it pains me, but we're coming out with it in our new version of our goals management solution. So I'm hoping that we have this opportunity to kind of have everyone be able to be reintroduced to it, is something we refer to as initiative functionality. And it's very similar to the OKR concept at a organization level. What it does is it allows you to be able to create an initiative either at a department or org level that people can actually align their performance goals to. And this provides, a way in which everyone can strategize. I mean, it's better than just cascading and pushing down goals. It gives you this overarching objective or initiative that you're trying to get done, and people can just align their goals to it so that you can track that people are working on the right thing. And it does not have as much utilization as I would have thought that people would have done, but I think it's because, people don't realize it's there. And I think that's an excellent opportunity for people to be able to leverage and do a very simple interaction and very simple for the employee just to align their actual performance goals to it. And it's in a way that you can control it, that you can actually push that initiative out to select groups of people. So it really does let you be able to really focus those initiatives on the people who actually need to be working on it and who need to align their performance goals to it. So that's another one.
That's how I think that goal one. I mean, both of those, the ongoing feedback, but the goal one I think is so critical because, like, it's been around success factors for a long time, and I've seen companies that actually use it. It's really powerful. Again, there's a right. It's not just tumbling goals as opposed to cascading goals onto people, but
Yeah.
providing structure and that connection and just goals in general. That's one of the things that cracks me up, that I'll be in conversations with managers and I'll be like, psychology shows people are more likely to do what you want them to do if you tell them what it is you want them to do. It's this amazing thing called goal setting. It's incredible. There's like, what is this crazy science?
Yeah. And to your point, like just plain old utilization of goals again throughout the year. The fact that it's still, for a lot of organizations, a culture where you set those goals, and a lot of companies lock down those goals. And no one should necessarily lock down their goals, or maybe they lock down some goals. I mean, like, goals are evolving. I mean, things happen, change happens, and you need to be able to recalibrate those goals throughout the year so that it's not just like I create it and then at the end of the year, did I achieve it? Yes or no. You should be working towards those goals throughout the year and tracking your activities and achievements towards those goals, and also again revising those goals if you have to, because change happens. I mean, who expected a pandemic? Who expected, AI to, for a technology company to become what it is? You have to be able to adjust your yearly goals to account for those things that occur.
Yeah, and the technology enables you to track that and monitor it and have transparency and all those other things. Yeah, it is kind of amazing. I mean, my second book was called Common Sense Talent Management because this seems so common sense, but as they say, common sense isn't.
Yeah.
What about current innovation? So those two, and I get for everyone out there, by the way, too, OKRs are a form of goal setting, but I cannot agree more with Sam as a psychologist. If you want to maximize employee performance, ongoing continuous conversations about goals and are they achieving them is a good thing. Do it. But
Good summary.
Good summary. What about current innovations? What are the stuff that you're working on right now that you're super excited about? And if you can say AI, but you've got to say what you're using it for.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, I won't just use it as the buzzword. Yeah. So one of the things that we are working on right now is what we refer to as our new career management offering, and it's allowing us to be able to combine normal career management activities as well as what we refer to as our opportunity marketplace solution, and infusing those opportunities in terms of being able to use AI to provide intelligent recommendations for those opportunities. So whether they're learning opportunities, whether they're project or assignment opportunities, whether they are even internal job opportunities as well that might be right for a person, and being able to really push that to the individual without them having to search for it. We've had Opportunity Marketplace for a couple of years now, but this new project is, again, the infusion of everything together, including learning, including what we refer to as our Talent Intelligence Hub. And that infusion is making it so that people don't have to be experts in navigating in the system to be able to accomplish their task. The things are being provided to them in the course of work, and they have one place to go to be able to do the things they need to do when it comes to a development type of thing, whether it's developing towards a role or just developing to your skills. And again, having those opportunities recommended for it. And one of the things that we plan on including by the end of the year, back to the AI thing, is leveraging generative AI in the process. We already mentioned the AI recommendations, but the generative AI allows us to be able to take the things that that person is doing. What state are they for a target role that they have? What state are they in the current role? And being able to take all of that information and the opportunities they are or not involved with, and use generative AI to surface this into what we refer to as career insights. And that career insights is going to provide for that individual a summary of here's where you are, and not only the summary, but also then potentially having the ability to be able to action directly from those insights to do recommended next steps. And having, again, it's about making it easy for the individual, making them not experts on how to interact with the system, but using the system to be able to push those opportunities to them to be able to accomplish the things they need to do from a development perspective. And it's still evolving in terms of the experience, et cetera, but I mean, to your question about excitement, it makes me very excited. Right down to the role recommendations and being able to use AI to be able to really look at that individual's whole self and take not only their skills, but also their aspirations and their everything that's about them, and using that to provide that intelligent recommendation based upon different criterias of, if you want to progress in your current roles, here's an opportunity. If you want to see what's popular in your organization, here's some other opportunity recommendations. And then again, being able to infuse that whole self information to really hone in on personalizing it. It's all about personalization for me at this point. We have the technology to make every interaction in the system highly personalized, and that's what AI does for us.
I think, as you're talking and this idea of like giving employees guidance relative to these large complex organizations and opportunities, I do think that's such a powerful thing because I'm reminded when success factors, I've been a success factor for a long time. Pre-SAP, one of the most powerful Success Connects, they had a woman get up who had been an administrative assistant in a small office in this big global company, and she shared a story about how she had completed her college degree in accounting and she'd put it into the employee profile, and because of that the internal recruiting people had recognized her. She kind of got on the radar screen. She ended up moving to a completely different city, and the technology completely changed her life just by virtue of getting discovered through this technology and making a connection with somebody she didn't even know and they didn't know her. And I think what you're talking about to me is like a super turbocharged version of
Yeah.
that story,
Yeah.
and that is super exciting.
It's the next level. I mean, like, it's exactly, I mean, I love the discovered aspect of it because that also is going to then factor into other innovations we're working on as well, especially in like the succession area. So with being able to search for talent and being able to have succession recommendations, making that discovery of that person who has, again, not only the skills, because traditionally, we've tracked the competencies and skills, you can search for that, but then being able to factor in the other information about that individual's whole self to really, again, personalize it. Here's one of the fun examples. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in our talent intelligence hub is that with skills in the future, we're going to allow an individual to say whether they may, to your point earlier, Steve, I may be an expert in, let's say, accounting, right? But that's not what my aspiration is. I have that skill. I'm an expert in that skill, perhaps, but that's not where I want to go. And so I want to be able to indicate in the system that I may have this skill, but I'm not interested in this skill. And then again, have that personalization factor into the recommendation so that you're not being recommended for things that you're not passionate about, that you're not interested in. And again, it's being able to personalize not that discovery in a way that's making sense for you, the person. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, I think
Bring
sometimes
that around. Will you bring that around to, like, we've talked about personalization for the employee and how great that is for employees, and that's excellent. But bring that back to the teams that are administering the system or that are creating the strategy for employees. What's the future? What's the present on the value they get from AI or analytics on their end, right? Because it's not just about the employee, it's about the organization.
So a few things actually. So there is the potential as you're looking at where people's um, interests are and where their focuses
Mhm.
are, and even the kind of target roles they're identifying. Then we can then in turn take that information and actually guide the organization in terms of workforce planning. Like they may have a whole suite of people with a certain skill set, but aren't interested in that as a future career. That information then can feed back to the administrative side of it and the workforce planning side of it to be able to then say, okay, well, we're going to have a problem in terms of this need we have from a strategy perspective where we don't have people who are interested from a future perspective. So that may either be a question of advertisement or on their needs, or potentially planning on actually hiring more people who have that interest in the future. Being able to take that information about the individual and what they are looking towards in the future and using that to influence their own strategy is I think an amazing opportunity. One of the things we are looking at is like with that target role selection, as people indicate their target trajectory, is providing that detail. And we also are looking at, and this is very early stages, but looking at, can we actually look at market-based information and allowing individuals to, be able to even search for roles that are not within the company's current role structure and being able to allow them to still utilize that and set that as a target role. And some people have been like, oh, well, isn't that going to encourage people to leave that organization if they don't have that role? And the answer is no. The answer is that no, it actually is really amazing information for that organization, because if there is a role that it doesn't currently exist in that company, well, maybe they should be formally creating that role. Maybe if that's a very popular thing for people to target, then maybe that's an opportunity for the organization to actually dig into that in terms of how it helps their own strategy.
Yeah, well, I think that also is a reflection of sort of the accelerating world, which is, using this technology to help employees have more control over their career trajectories,
Mhm.
recognizing as an organization that I always don't think of employees as static things. They're living things. They're growing. I always use this analogy. You're not building houses, you're cultivating gardens when it comes to a
Mhm.
workforce.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I think that's really powerful if you have employees that often say, "Hey, if I'm in this company," and we have companies like this that say, "Look, we don't expect you to be here forever, but we want you to leave to a better job than you came in,"
That's right.
which is okay because you can have a highly motivated person while they're with you, as opposed, yeah, I know,
And it also gets into actual employee happiness and
yeah,
satisfaction as well. I mean, like employees who are allowed to grow in the garden, as Steve mentioned,
yeah.
are going to be ones who actually want to have their roots in that organization. If they're allowed to grow, then their roots get really strong in terms of where they are, and employee satisfaction is increased, and that's good for everyone. It's good for the employee. It's good for the company.
Absolutely. Feed me, Seymour.
I knew you would turn it around to a musical. I knew it.
Good reference. Good reference.
Okay, going to the dark side, which that's kind of a dark musical. That's Little Shop of Horrors for those of you who don't follow musicals. Is what about past failures or things that you've seen? Because you've seen a lot of stuff that's really cool, but I know you've also seen stuff that what do you look at stuff and kind of go like, what should companies not be doing, or what are things that you're seeing that like that just doesn't work? That was like, man, it sounded like a good idea, but isn't good. Or when you're looking in the market, you're like, yeah, why are we doing this? It's just going to be a waste of time and resources.
I'm gonna bring up a very controversial topic, but Steve, I
Nice.
know that you have a similar mind as I do on it. So we all know that there was the big push to remove ratings from an assessment process. And that was very, very, very hot and popular, what, 5 years ago? Um, and a lot of organizations moved to eliminate ratings and to get rid of performance reviews from the process. And I think that and we of course enabled in our own product the ability for people to do what they wanted to do. If they wanted to get rid of performance ratings but still needed to pay for performance, we provided ways in which you could look at individuals' achievements to factor into compensation decisions and calibration decisions, et cetera. But the whole movement of to get rid of ratings was always very funny to me because of the fact that, again, if you're going to pay for performance, you're going to have to assess people one way or another. So you don't have to call them ratings, and you can get rid of numbers and it can have labels. But at the end of the day, an organization, in order to be able to pay for performance, is still going to have to calibrate. They're still going to have to evaluate people. And so I think that from an organization perspective, people who actually got rid of rate performance reviews and ratings at the time are coming back around and realizing maybe that wasn't a great choice. Maybe that wasn't the right thing to do because, again, it wasn't the ratings that were the problem with the process. It was, as we talked about in the very beginning, the fact that it was an end of the year first time I'm getting that feedback. And so if you are including ongoing feedback and ongoing engagement, and then at the end still being able to have some sort of assessment, again, it doesn't have to be numbers, but there has to be a way in which you can compare people and be able to with confidence, be able to uh, indicate, that this person should get more compensation than another person gets. I just think that's always funny to me, especially again, more and more companies are coming back to the performance review. And even if they don't have a rating, they're having some sort of end of the year way in which you're able to take all of that continuous information and encapsulate it into, this is what you did for the year.
Yeah, I think, well, in totally heated agreement on that. I think it's this issue too that this one customer said to me once, you can eliminate formal ratings, but you can't eliminate companies having to judge people, and why it's anxiety provoking to be rated. It's even more anxiety provoking to know you're being evaluated and not knowing who's doing it or what it's based on.
Yeah.
It's
And,
it,
and and that's what I really objected to. I really disliked it when companies quote unquote got rid of ratings, yet they were still rating the employees in the background. There's still a meeting that happens where you are rating the individual, but they don't have any visibility into how they're being evaluated. And I didn't like that either because not having that visibility, not having that transparency, I think is negative as well.
yeah, there was one
And
consult.
my perspective has always been what one of the things my boss told me a long, long time ago, which is no one likes surprises but kids and clowns. right? And if your performance rating is a surprise, right, you're not going to like it. Versus if you're having continual conversations or some sort of continual feed about your progress, your career, whatever, then things turns out well. And I'll tell you what, I once had a performance review. My manager kept kicking it, like over and over and over again, like back. Then it was like all the way to winter break, and I'm like, "Hey, guy, can we have this call eventually? I'm literally in Vail right now with my kids. Like, when are we going to have this discussion?" And it turned out that like he was as anxious as I was. You know what I mean? He kept kicking the meeting because he was nervous and he couldn't have conversation. It was fine. It wasn't like I wasn't in trouble or anything, but it wasn't like this is one time in my life where I didn't knock it out of the park, I guess. But we have to recognize that it's on both sides, and part of the reason why it doesn't go well is in part that human factor of everyone likes to give good news, and no one likes to even give medium to bad news.
Yeah.
There are some people that like to, but there's a word for them.
Fair. People in my life tend to not be so angry or mean.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, the thing too is, Sam, too, is that companies, including your own, had to spend all this time building something to enable what was a bad behavior to begin with, right? It's
That's
like I remember there's one consultant in our space that when companies said it got rid of ratings, he actually said, "Why are you lying to your employees?" And then you build technology to enable the lie, right? It's just like, let's hide it, which is so. Okay, next question we ask is a wish list. So, I mean, the reason this podcast is called Integrate or Die is the reality that no technology system, even a really big one like SAP, does not work, in a vacuum. It's no system is going to be everything to all people. It's a very big, complicated space. What are things that you wish some other company would build that would make the stuff you're doing more effective? That you're like, gee, our solutions would really be bolstered if someone else would build that. It could even be another part of SAP too. It doesn't have to necessarily be another company entirely, because SAP is so big that have technologies. I put it technology. SAP builds stuff that I didn't know anybody built at all.
That is such a hard question because, of course, anything that's an amazing thing, we want to, we obviously want to build it ourselves. Gosh.
But looking at the reality of limited resources, the focus of the company, we have lots of partners.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I the first thing that comes to my mind, and I won't lie, there are things that we are working with partners strategically on, but it's not there yet. So there is certain information that we are able to track in our HR system from a transactional perspective, but we are not involved in the day-to-day engagement and the interactions that people are having in terms of getting the work done. And so I'm not going to say something doesn't exist, but there are things that, of course, exist that are collaboration type of things. But being able to then take that and match it with the things that are going on from an HR perspective, and then ultimately being able to make everyone better for it in terms of the information. And again, I think that AI and generative AI is going to help with being able to put these pieces together, but it's being able to merge that information, and it goes back to that personalization. If you're able to take that day-to-day information and interaction, and you're able to merge it with the goals that have been set for the organization, or personal goals or development, then you really get to that next level of being able to provide really personalized and intelligent recommendations to the individuals for next action. So again, it's not that there are solutions, there are a lot of solutions that do things very, very well, and there are solutions that dabble in other things. I think being able to take the best of both worlds to have a holistic solution that's going to benefit the individual is where the future magic is going to be. And being able to build those bridges, so to speak, for that various stuff is, I think, is where I want things to go in the future to be able to accomplish it. I don't know if I answered the question well.
I think so. If I can kind of put it in the way that, this integrate or die framework that we have of is we talk about that there's technology that its core function of some technologies is sort of operational talent management, collaboration, getting the right people in the right role, focusing on the right things.
Right.
That's like talent management and enabling that. There's also technology that's core focus, just collaboration, helping people work together, communicate, talk every day, get projects done. And it sounds like what you're saying is, we want to blend these things. They're different functions, but there's a lot of information in people's day-to-day conversations that would influence talent management. And there's probably information on talent management. I don't know how I've never really thought about it going the other way, but it probably could be. Well, like a good example is goals. I've always said goals should be public, because if you want to help people collaborate, make it really clear what everyone's working on. It's amazing.
When we were talking earlier, I was literally going to mention that. Like I forget which part of the conversation we were in, but I was absolutely going to say just that what was it that, what customers don't do that they should be doing. It's making goals public. I mean, making it so that you have that visibility and transparency in terms of what people are working on. I totally agree. Like that's like, why aren't people doing that more? And why are we doing things in a way which we're hiding things from each other? We need to be open.
You almost should have that like in your email signature or whatever, whenever you come in to say, this is the stuff that matters to me, right? Certainly, because I work with a lot of customers. I'm in a lot of sales stuff. It's like rule number one of when you go into a customer engagement is what does the customer want? Well, that's true in internal stakeholders too. I think it's so obvious, but people don't do it. Yeah. I don't. So many, but that's so
total
true.
Tangent, but I'm with you. But yes, back to your point. Yes, being able to infuse in both ways. I think there is opportunity, and goals was a good example. But even feedback, and even so, here's another good example. So of where we would be able to see synergy. So in our Talent Intelligence Hub, where we are capturing that individual's whole self in their, what we refer to as their growth portfolio, and the attributes about themselves. One of the things that we are working with a partner on is to be able to infuse your ways of working. Like, what are your, you can think Myers-Briggs, you can think Principles U, you can think of other things that are evaluating your style, your work style. Well, if we are capturing that information as part of your whole self and in part of providing visibility to it, again, individuals should have the option and opportunity to choose what they do and don't share. But if you choose your working styles, then that can then be infused in when you're working on a project and working on a team, that you can get recommendations in terms of, how do I talk to Steve? Let's say I'm an extrovert. And by the way, spoiler alert, I am an extrovert. But I'm working with someone who's an introvert, or likes email correspondence better than phone calls, then I can, as I'm interacting with them on a day-to-day basis, get the system to let me know that information, to prompt me and say, hey, by the way, this person that you're talking to has this style. That can improve the way people work with each other and get their job done. I mean, like, that's a perfect example.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, because we normally think about, most of the stuff thinks about how can we take data from communications and use it to like improve employee listening, or use it to like do evaluations of career guidance and all that. We don't think of it going the other way. And I think your pointer is really an example, which, if you think about it, team building, that's part of team building, is understanding people's other objectives, their personal styles.
Yeah.
So
we're all different. We're all different.
And we all need some sort of validation from our peers, right? What you just described could be easily applied to peer-to-peer social recognition, right? Which we know. Right, go ahead.
No, I say we all need someone to lean on.
Exactly.
Now I'm about to break out into song.
I know. I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to get it to happen.
This is not a musical show, guys. Keep it under your hat. Keep it.
Just so the audience knows, I also love Star Wars and sci-fi and other things. So it's goodness. I'm multifaceted.
Good balance. Good balance.
He covers the whole band theater geek spectrum.
Strong support.
So moving on, last quick question, just a really short one on career guidance, because if you look in this field and you've certainly hired a lot of people, a lot of people, if somebody was like, gee, I want to pursue HR technology as a career, what would your be guidance? Because you started in configuration and kind of, I don't think any of us when we were kids were like, gee, when I grow up I want to be an HR technology person. What what advice would you have for that?
Another very good question. I think, in my opinion, the people who excel in the area of HR technologies is the people who actually have a really strong interest in people and, like, how people tick, what motivates them, what helps them, what improves them. I mean, I think that, my wife always makes fun of me because she actually has her doctorate in social psychology, whereas I have my undergrad in psychology. So I always like to, like, kind of lean in and like, oh, when I did psychology as my major, she's like, okay, slow your roll, calm down. You did psychology in undergrad. You don't have a doctorate in it. And but I think that is important. I think that the best people in this space are the people who have that interest. Now, of course, you're going to have the pure technologists who are going to help to code and develop, etc. But from an HR technology perspective, you got to be interested in people. You got to, you know, whether you're implementing, whether you're developing, requirements, etc., you got to be able to understand the requirements at a deeper level so that you are able to either execute or implement or develop or design with that in mind. It's got to be about the people, and that's something that I've always loved. I've always been fascinated by people, and I think that it's really helped me in terms of building good products.
Yeah, no, well, as a psychologist, I agree. Although I always joke that most psychologists go into psychology because they really care about people. I really care about what people produce. Um,
But seriously though, if every aspect of HR technologies, whether it's recruiting, whether it's learning, whether it's my area of talent, even right down to, Employee Central and a lot of things that are just purely administrative tasks, but benefits, etc. If you don't understand the individual and what motivates them, then you're not going to build the right solution. It's really important.
yeah. I think that's really true. I mean, even an example, we had a great conversation with, Imran Sahid, and he was talking about the impact that like payroll has on financial well-being. I mean, it was just, even things you don't think about that, but I think the people here, that's a really great observation. Last question, our
Yeah.
wild card question, which is, what is the question that we should be asking when it comes to HR technology that we didn't ask you? And the caveat is you're also going to have to answer it.
What should we be asking? By the way, I want everyone to know I did not get these questions ahead of time, because if I did, I would have been much quicker on the answers.
Well, they were in the invite if you had opened them.
Oh, was it in the invite? See, I need AI to actually help me better prepare for meetings. That's what I need. Oh, yes. Now, okay. All right. All right. So on that question, what question would you what should you be asking me? You should be asking me. Well, okay. So you should be asking me, like, about how organizations can get started in terms of being able to leverage all of the great technologies that are out there. There are a lot of barriers that are out there from people being able to realize all of this amazing stuff that is out there from a technology perspective. And a lot of it comes down to starting to build out skills, not only the skills for the organization or the competencies in the organization that are available to individuals to be able to choose for their development, but also the roles, et cetera. And that's hard. That is a really hard topic for a lot of our customers, because a lot of one of the customers I spoke to most recently was talking about how I was talking about the amazing stuff we have, and they've said, but Sam, what we have right now in terms of skills, competencies, and roles is landfill. They're like, it's garbage. And so we don't want the garbage to then go into this amazingness, because then we're going to get garbage back. And they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right that as we start to look at how technology can enable all this stuff, you need a baseline of information in order to make everything click. You can't have an awesome intelligent recommendations if you don't have the whole self data about the individual. And so the question is how do we help customers? How do we enable customers to be able to improve that? And so the answer to the question is that, at least on the success factors side, we are looking at tools that we can do to help people jumpstart and get started in this very difficult world of starting over for a lot of organizations, to identify the roles in the organization, to identify the skills in the organization. And then we are also, again, back to your point, Stephen, we're working with partners, because there are people who do things better than we do, who have really, industry best practices when it comes to roles and the skills associated with them. And being able to leverage those partners to be able to have that be a way in which you can, again, get jump started to identify the roles that are right for your company, first of all, for industry, but then can also, from their consulting services, help you to devise the right skills and roles and competencies that are specific to their culture. That is a huge problem to solve. And I'm glad that we are working on that problem, both ourselves with our own solution and with partners. But that is a major barrier for a lot of companies and organizations.
That is a really great observation. It's sort of like you have to have the content. I mean, we had something as simple as goals. Goal setting technology is not going to work if a company doesn't have a clearly defined strategy.
Right.
And a lot of companies don't
Yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah.
or they don't communicate it well. But certainly when it goes to all these other things, the infrastructure, job structure, a lot of this sort of content.
We can build the greatest technology solutions on earth that is going to make your sandwich and slice it for you, et cetera, and just do and provide those things. But if the organization doesn't have that baseline data to help support them, then they have a problem. One other thing I'll mention, because we kept on talking about goals, one of the things that I'm very excited about is that we are using generative AI for helping to support individuals in terms of creating good personal goals. And they can type in an initial name or description, and then the system, using generative AI, can then help them to construct the full-fledged description, the milestones for that, the measures, and being able to, again, take that work out of them. So the more things we can do to enable both the individual and the organization to be able to get that content into the system, so that then the system can then do what it needs to do, and people can then have the interactions they need to have, but you got to get the baseline in.
Yeah, the content. It's interesting these things tie together. So probably for a future podcast to talk about when is too much technology too much. I think we don't want to completely get the humans
Sure.
out, but that's
fair. That's fair too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm people with technology either,
Yeah.
because then you don't get stuff done.
That was so we first sort of closed on this when I first joined Success Factors way back. Before we met, somebody wrote a review. This was very early on. Said, "Hey, they've created technology so you can do performance management without people ever talking to each other." I'm like, that's not the point.
You solved the issue. Nothing but surprises and clowns.
Oh my God, that's awful. That's so bad.
Well, on that, hey Sam, I want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insights on this. You're a perfect example of why Jordan and I wanted to do this podcast, and so thank you so much.
Thanks
And
for having me.
with that, take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Talk
Thank
to
you
you
so
soon.
much.
Ciao.
Good to see you.